Welcome to this episode of the Gunman. So this video here is the first video on this Honda Integra Type R. We're going to be doing repairs, primer, masking, prep work, painting, and I'll probably even include some polishing later on in the very last video. I'll see how we go for time though. So this is a quick look over at the damage that we've got here. You can see on the rear bumper bar there's some flaky old repairs there, some filler repairs that are under there. We're also doing this quarter panel here. You can see there's a bit of damage there. We'll also be doing the front bumper bar. We're blending up that entire pillar there. He wants those mirrors removed, repainted and refitted. The bonnet needs doing, and also as you can see there's some more flaky paint and old repairs on that front bumper bar, and also be blending both of those fenders. So that's just mainly for the sake of the color. When I paint a bonnet, I do prefer to put paint over the entire thing. I'm not a big fan of blending bonnets. I have done it before, but where possible I'd like to put color over the entire thing. This is a quick look over the repair process. You can see I've just put a couple of little bits of filler in that bonnet. Wasn't originally part of the plan to do, but I found that dent after I spoke to the customer. So for the sake of an extra 10 minutes work, if that, I mean I had the sanders out, I had the filler out. It's going in the booth for primer anyway, might as well just do it. So ready to get some primer on this Honda Integra Type R. Just a bit of a repair here. Finished them all off with 320 grit. And front and rear bumper bars, same thing, finish them all off nice and fine. I put a bit of plastic primer over the bare plastic areas. Got the bonnet. I decided just to do the entire bonnet because there's just a few little sort of chips and stuff like that. And I'll put just say 3 coats over the entire thing, and there was just one little slight dent there. Put some fine filler into that one, the U-Pole Expert fine filler, and a fair few repairs that were coming through, so we had to dig out all that filler and redo it. Maybe there was some poor prep work from the previous repair, and that's just a lower spoiler. It's going to be using the Air Guns AZ3 1.8 as usual, and the Concept HS 2K primer. Good quality primer, that one. I mixed up about a litre, should get us through. May have to mix up a little bit more depending on how we go. So it's going to be 4 coats over all the big filler repairs and just 3 over the rest. So as always with my first coat of primer, I just like to put it on sort of medium wet. If you go and put it on too heavy, I've found that you probably just increase your chance of getting shrink back, because the solvents in that primer would just bite into those layers and layers of paint that you've opened up when you've sanded it down. So yep, also let that first coat dry right out before you go and put your second coat on. I will only be including the 1 coat of primer for this job here, but the owner of this car actually is a viewer of mine. The reason he found me was that he was watching one of my videos and he noticed the workshop area, because he's actually friends with my next door neighbor. So there you go, it's a small world. Owner of this car is a bit of a character, yeah, likes a good laugh, and he definitely cracks me up. So if you are watching, Lee, I would definitely still like to come and see you over in your detailing shop over there in Hong Kong if you do end up getting that going, so make sure you do get in contact with me. But yeah, next thing I might quickly touch on is a bit of shrink back. I'll take you guys through the infrared light curing. So I put my 4 coats of primer on, left it overnight. I then put the car in the sun the next day, but I also decided to put the infrared curing lights on it. They will definitely reduce your chances of shrinking back. I say they're a must in just about any panel shop. So I've just mixed the color up and I'm baking this quarter panel out because there was a bit of filler in there. When I was mixing the color up, the first thing in the morning I actually put the body right out into the sun. Beautiful West Aussie sun out there, and I had this panel here for about 2 hours sitting at 60 degrees, so it's starting to cool back now, and that wasn't quite in the sun, it was only sitting on around 40 degrees, so that's why I've decided to put the heat lights on that to make sure that gets baked out quite well. So by the time I rub this bonnet down, that quarter panel will be right for me to start on. And it is Sunday today, but I want to get the body all prepped up today, and tomorrow I'll be coming in and doing these bumper bars, getting them prepped up. and we'll paint it first up in the morning. Hopefully by the arvo it'll be dry enough and we'll be able to get it back out in the sun and then get it back to the owner by Tuesday. That'll be cool. So I'm just obviously being very careful with these lights that I'm not getting it too hot. 60 degrees, and that's, yeah, really only been on there for a couple of minutes. So like 1 meter is what I was always told, so about the length of your fingertips to elbow. So I've given it a block down. I use some 180 grit on this small block here. And if you're ever not sure about your repairs, just get some wax and grease remover or prep sol, whatever you want to call it, silicone remover. Spray it over. You can also do that just applying it with a rag. It'll give you a similar look, but that'll be a good idea of what it's going to look like once it's painted. You'll actually have a little bit more orange peel in there, so any slight stuff, it'll probably actually get hidden by the time there's a bit of orange peel over it. So I also got these blends cleaned down. All I did on these blends was just, so that was a dry off rag and then a damp rag with just normal old water, just clean rag, opened up the jams, made sure it was clean inside here and the entire panel, just clean up any water-based contaminants, and as it turned out it was quite clean, so it didn't have any oil-based contaminants, whereas if it did I could have used a solvent like wax and grease remover or even a bit of thinners. Just being careful with the thinners, obviously, what you get it on. So same thing on these two guards, just gave them a good clean down, and I blocked just that one section on the bonnet because there was a little bit of filler here, you may remember from when I did the primer work. The rest of it's not really going to need a block, just be hitting it with the orbital and the soft pad, interface pad. So I'll just be using 400 to start off with on the orbital, just obviously being quite careful to make sure I do get rid of all those 180 scratches, because usually the way I would do it is 180, 320, but being that the size of the repair, they're just so small, they're not really big enough for me. If it was the entire panel I'd block down, yeah, I'd probably go 320, but I'm happy that I'll be able to get rid of that with some 400 grit. And then I'll probably just go 600 over here on the orbital and then 800 soft pad. It's got to be very careful I don't cut through on any of these blend areas, so that's really the main area you sort of want to stay away from. If you're ever not 100% sure, just do that by hand. Do that blend area by hand. Can't hurt. Some people still use grey Scotch-Brite when they're doing their blends, and they get their bucket out and they get the scuff stuff paste and they clean it all down and they get shit all over the joint, make an absolute mess, and takes them ages to clean up. Whereas this way, it's cleaner, and I believe it actually makes for a cleaner job as well in the end. Like, you get less dust in your job, and it's a hell of a lot quicker, I tell you what. So yeah. I've recently just had a guy tell me that he's been painting for 30 years and he loves watching my videos, and that's the main thing that he's picked up from me is doing dry sanding. And he said, man, I tell you what, it's the best thing I've done. And he said, I can't believe I haven't done it sooner. But yeah, done properly, it is definitely far superior. I mean, far superior to wet sanding. There's like, I can barely see any advantages of wet sanding. Maybe if you're doing a bit of denibbing and you haven't got those Kovacs discs that you see me using, and if I end up including the polishing stage in this, you'll see what I mean. But yeah, if you don't have those expensive discs, well then maybe a bit of wet sanding prior to polishing would be good. But as far as preparation goes, prior to painting, I really can't see any advantages of it, but I can definitely see some disadvantages of it. So that's all the orbital sanding done. Did those blends with the 600, 400 over the bonnet, and I then went around with one of these sanding sponges with 400 grit around all the bonnet edges. I picked up a couple of stone chips here and there, one on each guard, and there was also one on the quarter panel. Picked them up, blocked it out just with a bit of 400, and then went back over it with the 600. And there was one here too, and that's all been 600 too, the entire panel, ready for me to 800 just by hand. So I like these pads because it'll actually remove a little bit of the orange peel, and it's going to cut into that clear coat, so exposing some of the nice fresh clear coat rather than Scotch-Brite, which really just goes over the top and you won't actually remove any of that orange peel. So hasn't really taken too long, probably about 45 minutes all up. Pretty happy with how I'm going. I'm just going to finish the prep on this and then call it a day. So that's all prepped up, happy with how it's all gone. One thing I would like to just make quick mention to is when dry sanding, you've really got to be quite clean. Like, see my hands here, they've just got a little bit of dust from when I was doing here. So this powdery sort of grey, light grey or white dust here, if I was to go and get that over this blend area here and just go and put my hands into it and get an old pad that I just sanded here with and then sand over here, there's a good chance that even after you prep sole it, you will end up with having a little bit of a milky haze from that. So you've really got to be careful with that. That is the biggest challenge when dry sanding, I believe, is keeping those blends clean. So if you've done anything on your primer area, blow it off, blow yourself off, blow your blends off, keep it clean. And look, if you're not 100% happy that you can do it, you know, just use a bit of wet rubbing, a bit of water. That will pull all of the dust out of it. But as I say, to me, it's a bit of a waste of time. Back when I was starting to do dry rubbing, that's what was happening to me, and I didn't quite realise what was going on. So I'd be using Scotch-Brite and stuff like that, and I'd probably go over the bonnet here, and then I'd just go straight over this panel here, and not realising that the water that I was using previously would drag all of that white dust or the powdery dust, and it'll clean those blends off. Whereas when you're not doing that, you'll have that problem of getting stuff on that blend area. But again, you can just get some of this wax and grease remover, and that'll give you an idea whether or not your blends are clean. Maybe get the sun gun or get a torch or something, and that should let you know if you've got it nice and clean. So anyway, I'm going to go home and start editing this video. So we just about got these bars sorted. That was a pretty big job getting that front bar done. It was a bit average around these areas before, but I'm pretty happy with, even up the top here, just all the fiddly bits and that. Takes a while to sand, and got that bit done. And my partner's doing this rear bar here, a few extra repairs that he's found down here and stuff. I hope the owner's happy with it because we've definitely spent a lot of time on it. But next up, I've done one change on this colour. This is going to be hard to give you a look at with only two hands. I'll do my best. So I am using this Luma 3 torch as well, and I've got it in the sun. But it's definitely an improvement on the first one. Not sure how well you can see that on the video, but it was a bit dark on that lower card there. So I put a bit of ochre in it and a touch of white. I think I'll do exactly the same amount once more, and I think I should have it. They're all blends all around, but this bumper bar here, so that's where I really want it to look right. I will obviously make sure it's all the same colour all around. Sometimes when people have done it before, they've got the wrong colour on a spot here and there. You have to make 2 batches, but I'll sort it out. Getting it in the booth soon and start masking it up. Obviously give the booth a good clean out first, sweep it all down, get some water on the floor. And being that this is where the intake is, I'll be reversing the car in and have the bonnet sitting straight under that. That's the main thing that you want to keep clean. That booth probably was a little bit overdue at this point for a good clean out. I do actually have another video on how I do the services on my spray booth, but I commonly get a question of why have you always got water on the floor of your booth. That also helps keep the dust down because it's a dry floor booth. It's got no grates in there either, so yeah, all of the overspray from the previous job just basically turns into dust, so I need to sweep it out, especially when you've been priming. All that overspray just hits the ground, turns into small little balls, and then it will turn into dust, and that will recirculate into your paint job sometimes if you're not careful. The way this booth works, I sort of get these vortexes in the booth, or vortice, whatever you want to call it, in the booth. So yeah, having that water down there will sort of, as soon as overspray hits that, it'll just grab to that water and it will not recirculate back around in that booth. I'm sure that it would definitely help a DIY guy at home. Obviously, being careful that you haven't got extension leads laying around on the ground. That's not an issue in this spray booth because it's just a complete concrete floor. But one thing I have found is that every single spray booth just about that I've worked in paints differently, and I mean like literally every single booth. Like where I used to work, we had 2 brand new spray booths put in side by side, and there was a couple of different little quirks about them. You know, you've got to learn your spray booth. When I first came into this workshop, like I stuffed the first couple of jobs until I realized that you actually can't open the door while you're spraying. First booth I've ever worked in that has reverse pressure in it, so if I open the door, it actually sucks in. And like every other single spray booth I've ever worked in will actually push pressure outwards, but it's just the way this booth is set up. I also used to find that you're better off painting at the fan end, but in this one, you're better off painting underneath the fan, the suction end, so right up the other end than the fan. And that's just from experience, I guess. I just found what works. You know, you paint a few panels in the booth, well, the one that's underneath the inlet, which is what I showed you before, they're always the cleanest panels, so that's why I reversed this car in underneath that that inlet. Also, part of the reason that we've got the paint mixing bench in the spray booth, because before I was saying that if I leave the booth when it's running, well then all the dust will suck into the booth, so this way I don't even have to leave the booth. Another advantage of not having to leave the booth is that you're not going to possibly get any contamination on yourself as well. So I had a comment recently on one of my other videos, is that most paint videos don't mention enough about the importance of contamination on when you're doing paint work. And it was made by Mr. Furious G, a long time viewer of my videos, and yeah, I think he's right. So basically all it can take sometimes is just like the wrong rag. You know, if you pick up an oily rag, or it's something that's just been used for washing the dishes with, something as silly as that, it's a foreign body. Like, it's not something that should be anywhere near something that you're about to paint. Keep it away from it. Use clean rags always. Make sure your hands are clean. You know, a bit of dust and a bit of bog on your hands, that's not really going to cause any problems with your paint because it's all related materials. But even something like eating a greasy pie at morning smoko and having that grease all over your hands, and then thinking you can just pick a spray gun up and walk in the spray booth and get a nice looking job without silicone in it. Hey, it's a possibility. Another common one is the young guys with their hair products. Okay, so everything is set up and masked up and ready to give it a wax and grease remover. Pretty happy with all the masking. Got all the edges real nice. Obviously when you're doing masking, it's pretty important that you don't have, say, this piece touching that panel. It's easier to clean off a bit of overspray where you've got too much paint. If you haven't got enough paint there, well then you got to either try and do a touch up or just respray the whole panel. So when I do use my wax and grease remover, I'll be careful to make sure I clean my blend areas down first, so that, as I said before, with the prep work, I'm not dragging any dust that is on this part here onto my blend again. So something that I'm always conscious of, and flipping that rag up. I'll be using this atomizer bottle. I find you use a lot less prep salt when using them. Use a couple of less rags as well. So looking forward to getting this thing done. I reckon it's going to look real nice when it's done. I'm going to be using the SGK for base coat, just because it's an awesome gun. It paints solvent-based base coat real well. And I'll be using the Pro Light with the Luma 3 on it for clear coat. I've sort of had a few mixed emotions on this Luma 3 light of late. Been trying to get really enthusiastic about it, but what I have found is that on some of the lighter colors, it actually ends up having an adverse effect, and as you can see here, it actually blinds you. I'm hoping that on this black one here, I'll get some better results, because obviously the whole thing will be black before I use it, my clear coat, and then hopefully it'll really show up exactly what I'm doing, because the black absorbs the light and the white reflects it. It's good for color matching. I did use this for color matching. It's great because they do have color corrective globes in there, LEDs, sorry, not globes. And yeah, inspection it's great for, but to be honest, I think they need, and this is my feedback to the company, they need a dimmer switch on the light itself. Maybe have some settings. If you set it here, that's for, you know, light colors. Here for dark colors, here for color matching or something. At this point, as I said before, I'm really not quite happy with the way it works on the lighter colors. So these are set up quite well actually. Make sure they're nice and tight here, and they're on the same way that they sit on the car. If I had them hanging up here, they would have been blowing around, and I would have had to hold the back of it with my hand and get paint all over my arm and hand and stuff. So this is actually a good setup here. They should come up quite nice. There's a few little repairs here and there. I didn't prep these up while I was masking these up. My partner was getting these ready. But I heard him having a bit of a whinge, saying they weren't in the best nick. But he seems to have done a pretty good job. And there's a couple of spare door handles that he bought in. So, and this one here, he just told us to mask it up, because under there it's sort of chipped back a bit. But to do that properly, you have to pull the two sections of the handle apart. And basically you'll ruin the handle doing that, so not really worth it. I'll just puff a bit of black over there, making sure I aim it that way so I don't ruin my blend. I might actually just get a piece of paper to shield that blend when I do put the colour on that handle. So next up, I'll be giving the entire job a tack rag down. I'll just be giving it the once over, so just go over the entire thing once with the high pressure there. I'll then mask up the front edge of that quarter panel where I'm doing the blend just here, so I can puff that colour over the door handle there. And then I'll actually go over the entire thing once more once I've got that black on, because any of the black overspray will be prone to actually turn into sort of little bits of dusty, misty overspray over the rest of the job. That's why I just thought I would tack rag the entire job down after putting that black base coat on that handle. I've given it all a good tack rag down, just once over. I'm going to be going over it once more. I did paint the door handle. I put a bit of paper down here. You can see the masking line there. So that's right to clear over now. Didn't get any on my blend. Give the entire thing just another good tack rag and start getting some colour on with the SGK. 2 coats of colour should cover this. Most blacks cover pretty well. Just the concept, base coat, no mix. I'm happy with how I got the colour. 2 coats and then a couple of coats of clear. Standox HS Clear. As requested by the customer. Hope you guys have enjoyed the first video on this Honda Integra Type R. I'm going to be leaving it there for this one. Make sure you stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, make sure you do go over and check out my website. I'm constantly updating it, and it's basically just like a massive playlist from all my YouTube videos, but I also do upload some photos there and do some blogs. So if you would like to read some of the things that I have to say about these jobs that I do, well then check that out as well. Check out these videos at the end. There's a special one at the end called the Gunman on the Loose in Thailand. If you'd like to see my 300th video, check that one out. Now you've seen this video, get out there and paint some shit. Thanks for watching, and this has been another Gunman production. Goodbye.